I don't want attention drawn to me any more necessary, but I entered in my 12th year of cancer, and I have got a blood result this week that's the highest that I've had, bad result. And so I need wisdom, and I forgot to bring that up in the middle of all this, but just appreciate prayer. I got to get a hold of a couple doctors next couple days and figure out if I need to alter what we thought we were going to be doing. So just appreciate your prayers. It's going to kill me. It's killing me. The treatment's killing me. One of them is going to kill me. But I'm not unhappy about that. Just pray for my wife. I'm not trying to be flippant. I'm excited. I was sleeping the other day, or napping, trying to go to sleep, and I thought of all the people that I personally know that have gone to be with the Lord, and it's like the reunion is going to be exciting, very exciting. So that's I'm not afraid of, but I appreciate prayer. I need wisdom to know how to treat it or what not to do. But at some point here, it's not going to be good. So if you turn your mics on, we will get started. Was that already going out, what I just said? Oh, okay. That's all right. No.
I can pause it and restart.
No, I'm not opposed to it. I just didn't know. I was going to let it start. But you're right. After we pray, we start. Paul.
I got a question before you get going.
One question.
On verse 16
Of chapter
of what we're doing.
13. Okay.
13, 16.
Some people here have no idea what we're doing. So it's no, just kidding. Revelation 16 or 13, 16.
Right. It's which he is that, the false prophet or the statue? Because I'm not good at English. So who is that he? And he deceives those. Is that the statue?
It's going back, the antecedents going back to verse 15 with the false prophet. There was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast, and then skip the other. Then he explains it, that the image of the beast might speak and should cause many to do not worship to be killed. But there was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast, and he causes all, the small and the great, rich and poor, to be given a mark on the right hand and forehead. So it's still talking about the false prophet. That would be the antecedent that he'd be going back up to there. And if I would venture that the statue, I didn't look at it, honestly. I would venture it could be in the neuter, because it's the thing, not a him or a her, but it is a him in the sense that it represents him. So, but the Greek may lead you back to where that would be even clearer. It may not. Sometimes it doesn't. But that's where I think the hina clause there, which is the little word that, you can translate it in order that in verse 15. It's still referring to what the false prophet is doing, and then picks back up in verse 16, or the result of what the false prophet's doing in 15. And then goes back and says, and the same thing, that he is that false prophet, which is the him in verse 15. So then you're going back to verse 14. He is still there. 13, he. 12, he. 11, he. And then finally 11 is explaining this individual who is another beast. And we know later, and it's explained there, that that is the false prophet. So it's just kind of flowing along with that. Does that make sense?
Well, I just got lost, and I didn't know if all of a sudden this image now is starting to do it since he can speak.
I got a $20 bill if you say you agree with me. I got to look good in front of people, you know. Maybe I should have offered 5 first and just see if you take that. Okay, so.
Correct that for the
Oh yeah, we're being recorded. I'm just kidding. Paul, I don't give Paul money for anything, most of the time. All right, we're at verse 14, latter part of verse 14. So we're going to pick up a little bit. Who'd like to read 12 to 17 again, just to get us back into an understanding of what's going on with these details. The deceiver is verse 11, as you see in your notes. That individual is another beast out of the earth. We recognize him as being the false prophet. All right, who'd like to read 12 to 17 with a lit up microphone? They're lively tonight. The women are waiting for the men, so they give you a chance. They want the guys to be able to read. Oh, Jim volunteered. Okay, Jim, go for it.
I was waiting for other men.
Oh, okay.
So you said 12?
Yeah, this last part on the details.
Yeah, 12 to 17?
Yeah.
And he, referring to this false prophet, exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence. And he makes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose fatal wound was healed. And he performs great signs, so that he even makes fire come down out of heaven to the earth in the presence of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth because of the signs which it was given him to perform in the presence of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who had the wound of the sword and has come to life. And there was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast might even speak and cause as many as do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. And he causes all, the small and the great, and the rich and the poor, and the free men and the slaves, to be given a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. And he provides that no one should be able to buy or to sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name.
All right. So we were going through these questions here. Is my mic working okay? I don't hear me, but it might be my own ears. We got down to verse 14. 14a, how does he use the signs? He deceives those who dwell on the earth. The word deceives means to cause to wander, go astray. He misleads them. And what does he convince people to do? To make an image to the beast, the wild beast from the sea, the first one in verse 1. And so I had you define image. It literally means a statue. Figuratively can be some kind of representation, form, a likeness. And what is the difference between the first beast and his image? The first is a man or a human being. The second is a statue or an idol with some kind of artificial intelligence because of all the things that we see it can do. It even is able to speak. And we're seeing that coming very rapidly. Question? No question. We were watching a Modern Marvels the other night, and they are archaic now because the ones we're watching is on free TV and it's old. So this one was like 15 years ago. And you watch what was the latest, greatest stuff that they're showing on Modern Marvels, and it was like, what? And then you realize how far we've come and what we know, let alone what we don't know that the government's doing and hiding. And so it is amazing what's out there and what this statue, or maybe a number of statues, is going to be able to do, and I think convince people that it in itself is even alive. So the next question that we stopped at, why will they worship the beast? Verse 14c, and what did you put down there?
He had the wound of the sword, but came to life.
Okay, because he had the wound of the sword, but he has come to life, and has come to life means what? 2198. Literally means, okay, resurrect is what it implies. It literally means to live, is all that means, to come to life. But it's the idea of living again, or to resurrect. So how was the false prophet empowered in verse 15? Jim just read that for us.
It was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast.
Okay, so I use the word empowered in some way. It doesn't mean it's miraculous. It doesn't mean it's supernatural. But somehow he has an ability to give breath to the image of the beast. This word breath simply means basically what? Spirit or wind. That's the basic idea. So it can carry the idea of breath or life, right? So he's enabling this image, this statue, to speak and to act, to be animated in some way, which is going to really impress people. And I commented about the statue of Lincoln at Disneyland back in the late 60s, that I remember seeing it, and how far they have come from that. This will be amazing to people, and they will not understand that it's not real. What was the image able to do in verse 15? It's able to speak. 2980 means to talk, communicate, make oneself heard, express itself, give forth sounds. Somehow it has a what? To proclaim. Somehow it has a faculty of speech in a statue. That was Abraham Lincoln, but I knew it wasn't real. And that has been 53 years ago, roughly, that I remember going down there in 69. And so they've come a long ways, but they're still tricking people. What will happen to those who refuse to worship the image?
You won't be able to buy or sell.
Okay, ultimately that'll be the result, but initially he tells you in verse 15,
Be killed.
those who do not worship the image of the beast, it will make them to be killed. That word 6:15 means put to death.
Destroy.
Okay, can't hear the idea of abolish, but when it comes to death for humans, destroyed fits it, but it means to be executed, to take their life away in some way. That's what it's trying to focus on there. All right, details continued on the second page. So far, so good, right? I didn't have to call on Isaac yet, but it's coming. He's up there studying, trying to make sure he's ready. Who will the false prophet put pressure on? All peoples, and he breaks them down into 3 groups. Socially describes them as the small and the great. And I gave you some definitions or simple explanations there. Small simply means insignificant people. That's most of us. Never on the news, never given great acclaim, no great inventions, nothing special about us. What's that?
Speak for yourself.
Okay, sorry. Maybe you've done some of those things. And then the great refer to
Power.
the powerful, okay? Megalous is the word. The idea comes from mega again. But these are people that stand out, that have great authority and power. They're in control. They are the great ones. How about economically? Okay, 2 extremes again. The rich and the poor. The rich refers to those people who are wealthy. The poor is a word used to describe beggars. Real beggars. Not most of the people you see in America standing on or sitting on street corners and making a really, really good living. These are people who have nothing to eat. This is beggars, they have nothing. They're at the bottom of the barrel. And so that he's using extremes here. How about legally? Who were they all including? Okay, they understood free men as being, the free men being independent, not subject to anybody. They could get up in the morning and decide what they want to do for the day. In contrast to that, it's the slaves, and in this case, what kind of slaves? Bondage, and the lowest form of bondage, bond servants, had no rights of whatsoever of any kind. They could be executed by their masters with nobody even thinking twice about it. The slave got snarky with me, and I put him out of his misery. Went down to the market, bought another slave, on we went. Okay, that's how low those people were. But it's all those people. So John's going out of his way to make sure we understand. He causes all. This is going to dominate the world. That has never been before. There's never been a world leader in this sense. There's always been nations, not just the natives in the jungles, but whole nations of peoples that Rome didn't dominate, Assyria didn't dominate, Egypt didn't dominate. In South America and in North America, in Australia, there are different groups that were always out there. This is all peoples. So what will the false prophet use to coerce people to submit? The mark. This word 5480 means a stamp,
Seal, engrave.
an impression of some kind, engraving, not a tattoo. They have a different word for that in Greek. This is some kind of etching. It's like the brand on a horse. It's an imprint. It's a stamp on a coin. Tattoos are a flat, dark contrast to your skin color, depending on what your skin color is. Flat. This is an raised impression. This is why when they tell you, oh, the mark of the beast is going to be some kind of little chip they're going to put under your skin. Nope. Not saying they aren't going to use that for something, but that's not the mark. The reason for this is this mark is to be like a tattoo, but different, to be very, very obvious and not easily removed.
Like a chickenpox vaccination.
Well, it leaves that kind of mark. This may be even bigger and brighter, but it's that idea, yeah. It's definitely that. But this could actually be something being mounted onto the skin. But when they use it, they talk about some kind of engraving. Remember what they're going to put on the mark? either a name or a number. It's going to somehow be engraved, which is where you keep, your brain wants to go back to tattoos, and many Bible teachers today use that, and it's not the word. I think the word stigma is the Greek word for tattoo, but this is a special term. How is this term unique? What did you put down there? I put negatives, but Linda?
Well, I put it in the raising of the skin.
Okay, raising of the skin somehow. Jim?
I put, it seems to be dimensional.
Okay, some kind of three-dimensional thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Like a scar.
Well, and scars can be that. Again, they vary as far as how bad they are. Pat?
I think it's gonna show the ownership of.
Okay, as far as getting to the meaning of it.
Yeah, because, tattoo can be art, but this is gonna serve a purpose, so,
Okay, and it's going to show the ownership because it's going to have what on it?
name or a number.
The name, which is his number. The two go together. And so as you put those in there, what do you write your name on? I just bought a really nice baseball glove at a thrift store. That's what I look for when we go in there. And for one of the grandkids, thought, well, price is too low, glove's too good, I'm going to pick it up. But it has some kid's name on it. He wrote, almost as many, took up as much space as he possibly could with his name, single name, Ralph or something like that, all the way across the whole glove, And so I'm looking at it thinking, well, maybe I can get that off somehow. But this is the idea. Ralph wrote his name on there, if that's what the name was, because he owned the glove. That was his glove. This is what the Antichrist is going to do through the working of the false prophet, is to mark people not with a tattoo, not with a barcode, not with some injection or some type of implant, but with a stamp or an impress, an engraving, where this name is etched into the person's forehead or right hand, and that's what this moves toward next. So we have to point out it's conspicuous, it is visible, but it's also voluntary. They will not force you to take this mark. They cannot force you to take this mark. And we're going to see as we get into this, because those who do take it in the upcoming lessons end up in the lake of fire. If you've taken the mark of the beast, you're done. You will never be saved. You've crossed over because you chose that and you asked for that to be put on you to identify with the false Messiah, not the true one. Questions along that line, okay?
Is there any differences or any reason to have it on the right hand versus the forehead, or is it just the person's choice?
We're going to look at that. Good
Okay.
question. So what parts of the body are options for this mark to be engraved upon? First one's the hand. Where's that? Why the right hand?
Power.
Okay, it's your dominant hand. It's what?
Well, left hand was the dirty hand.
Okay, in their culture, it was the hand that was dirty. You didn't shake with left hands. You didn't use left hands for things.
The right hand tends to be the position of power.
Okay, it's how you typically did things. What's the percentage of lefties and righties in our culture? It's at least 90 to 10, and it may be higher than that. So the dominant people, it would be the right hand. So what you're going to reach out and do something with is the hand they want marked. That's the hand's going to come out. If you go to a scanner, which right now it's with your, well, I don't know what it's with. It's gone from a card, now they're starting to use some retina scanners. They're starting to use some, what's the other one I saw? Fingerprints have been there, but they're starting to use that, and I think they're doing some, maybe with the whole face. Facial recognition, it was the one they're using.
Another
Leo?
thing with the right hand is that's typically your, hand you hold a weapon in.
Okay, so if you can see that hand, you know that typically there's not a weapon. Yeah. That's why Ehud, the left-handed judge, was able to kill that bad king, because they didn't realize he was left-handed, and he came in with that dagger and took the guy out. They didn't check his left side. Pat?
10% of people are left-handed.
Oh, it is 10, wow.
They don't make you put your left hand on the Bible when you swear anything.
Okay, so they use the right hand. So it's just going to be a common hand that's shown. And I put why there, and so you just gave answers to some of that. Somehow it's more accepted, more functional with machines, with computers. It's the one that you're going to be bringing out and about. When I preached at times, I found myself with my left hand in my pocket a lot. So my mark, if I was one of them, it would be out here where people could see it. I don't know. It's just what they're going to do. How about regarding the head? This is another option because it's an or. Why would you put it on the head? What part of the head? The forehead specifically, and why there? Okay, I got a whole bunch of them, and I know nobody at home could hear that. Linda?
Very, very obvious.
Okay, very obvious?
They can say it when they want it. You'll take it with pride.
Okay, maybe, unless I wear a hat or I have bangs. So yeah, if you're going to do it with pride, you're going to find ways to not cover up this mark that you have proudly received. Other reasons why it may be on the forehead.
Larger area for more information.
Okay. It might even be bigger on that forehead than it is on the hand.
Look at the information I got.
Yeah. Yours is nothing.
Two rows worth of stuff on it.
2 rows worth, yeah, on some of our foreheads.
The person's left-handed.
Okay, the person's left-handed and that's their dominant hand, so they put it up. Okay, that's a good observation. Because they don't let them put it on the left hand. But it's a mark of honor in some ways. And it's going to be taken. It's not going to be forced. This is where, again, you have so many people teaching today and scaring Christians that, oh no, if I get the mark, I'm going to be lost forever and ever. And a lot of those people believe they can lose their salvation. It's not going to happen that way, and Scripture's really clear about that. So why does a false prophet require a mark?
So then they know who to get rid of.
Okay, and specifically the Bible describes that how? Because that no one should be able to buy or sell except the one who has the mark. Does that limit your life a little bit? So I had you look up. Go ahead. Question? No. I had you look up those 2 terms so you understood what does buy mean here.
Redeem. Redeem.
Okay, you can carry the idea of redeeming
Purchase.
to purchase in the marketplace. So this isn't just covering your ATM or can be the grocery store, but this could cover some of the bartering you're doing. If you don't have some way to trade with people, which already is illegal, they've already shut this down. That if you're trading and they lose out on taxes that they're going to get because of your sale and buying and all of that, and they track that down with their 87,000 new IRS employees, they will penalize you. Yes?
Can we back up just a
Yeah.
second? You said that, I think you said that it's not bad to get the mark of the beast, or it's not going against the Bible?
No. Other way around.
Other way around.
You said they won't be able to force it.
They won't be able to force the mark on you. But
Okay, I thought you said that.
Revelation 14:9 says, if you take the mark, you are lost forever,
That's what I thought, yeah,
and you will be in the lake of fire.
'Cause I
So
thought-
no, it's a bad thing. You won't want it. It'll be a lot clearer to Christians at the time of what that mark actually means.
Okay.
It's kind of like, I'm not a big shirt wearer with emblems on it. A lot of you wear them, and I don't care. I'm not against it. It's just not me. It never has been me, not even as a kid. I didn't like it. My mom got me a bumblebee shirt, I called it one time. It was these weird stripes, and I'm colorblind, so I didn't know for sure what color, but they looked like black and yellow, and they were wide stripes, and she made me wear it to junior high. I protested and protested. I think I wore it one time. I hated it. I do not like things that I feel like are drawing attention to me, so I don't wear stuff like that. But many people do, and advertise, good advertisements. Some of them, they're Christian scriptures and the gospel and all kinds of stuff. It's just not me. So in case you've ever wondered, but if they came to me and they wanted me to display something like that, I would have no trouble saying, no, thank you. For whatever reason, I just wouldn't do it. Whereas others, I watch ball games, football games. There happens to be a couple going on this weekend. And you look at the stadium. What are people wearing? Jerseys. Almost all of them, I shouldn't say all, but almost all of them have some kind of stuff, and some of them have gone bonkers. I mean, they're dressed to the hilt. It must have taken them hours to get ready just to go to the game. They are honoring their team. They are, all their hair, everything. But they're taking this position that I'm with them. And then they get the number and the name and all the different things that people do with all that. That is very common in society today. This is what they're going to do with the mark, which is why Christians are going to go, I don't identify with any of that. Regina?
Well, it just reminded me, I saw the other day where in Milwaukee, the guy had Jesus Saves on his shirt, and the guard, or the security guard was trying to make him take that off because it was offending people around him with other religions.
And where was that?
He wouldn't, he said, you can't go in the shops in Milwaukee.
The city of Milwaukee.
Yeah, Wisconsin.
Yeah, they were making him, or he wanted him to take that shirt off because it was offensive.
So you're already seeing that coming, which is not legal at this point, but they have to come up with some, it used to be swear words or pictures that were totally inappropriate, and they let them stop that. But now it's becoming arbitrary. And if it offends me, you can't wear it, and a lot of that today. Ken?
So with them you're not being able to purchase anything with the mark, what about, like our mortgage payments on our houses and that type of thing? Will they just be able to come and take your house because you can't pay for it anymore because you don't have the mark?
Good possibility. This is the end. Now remember two things. When does this mark take place? Okay, it's before the rapture, during the Great Tribulation is what we're looking at. Realistically, because the Antichrist doesn't take control until the middle, and that's when the Great Tribulation begins, Matthew 24:15 to 21. And we're seeing the mark in there. So this is going to be a short period of time. Many Christians are going to die. Remember when Satan couldn't get to Israel in chapter 12, in verse 17, what does he do? He goes after those who hold to the testimony of Jesus. So yes, many, many Christians are going to die. And it isn't even going to be the mark necessarily. They're just going to find out who you are and take you out. So don't be surprised right now. Greece just went in not too long ago and took half of all the savings accounts in the nation of Greece. They came in, took half of it, gone. You lose. Doesn't want to make you keep your money in the bank, does it? But you can see some things where they're going to go in. Well, if you're well marked in a godly way, as being a believer, like you're a pastor, there's something, you're online. They've recognized you for who you are. They may come after you and just shut everything down right off, mark or no mark, before it's even out. So I don't know how far they're going to go. But the fact that you may pay your bills with a check may go away. That you can't buy or sell, it's going to be limited in some way, and everything on the internet without cash. I don't know exactly. See, God hasn't given us all the details because that's not what we need to focus on. What you need to focus on is the realization, don't be surprised when these things come. He told you they would come. He told you who's behind it, why they're doing it, and he's also promised that he would take care of us, never leave us or forsake us. So what does this not say about believers at that time? Does it tell you that they're automatically going to die? No. How did God feed, what's his name, with the ravens? Elijah. How did God feed Elijah?
Ravens.
You ever been around ravens? You ever seen how ravens treat even a big red-tailed hawk when it has a kill in it? I've seen 3 of those, I think, in 36 years here. And I drove by one day, and I look up, and I see this gigantic bird. I mean, it wasn't very far away, with this animal, I forget. One time it was a rabbit. I don't remember what that one. And you can see the blood dripping, and the thing's still kicking a little bit. And then all of a sudden, I stopped, because I'm looking at it, and all around it, there had to be at least 6 ravens in the same tree. Within a few feet of that bird, waiting for something to fall. They don't give up stuff. So to me, Elijah being fed by ravens was God's sense of humor. They never should have fed him or given him anything. They would have scarfed it, and they're big enough birds to take care of themselves. So God can and will take care of us. He doesn't mean you're automatically going to die, but you won't be working in their marketplace anymore. Jim?
I was just going to say, you can always tell new people in the neighborhood because their garbage cans don't have the lid down, and the ravens spread them all over the ground.
And then the dogs come up and actually pull the can over, and then it really makes it. Yeah, I know. I'm one of those that make sure it's mashed, but I haven't had a can for 35 years.
With Israel, God took care of them, fed them in a way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we don't know
Yep.
how God is going to take care of us, but he will.
Right. If he wants you alive, you're going to live. If it's time for you to go home, you're going to go. It's like that's not a thing for us. We should never be worrying about that. That's why even with cancer and some of those other things, it's always a realization, I'm on God's timetable, not man's. And so it actually gets exciting to me, but I try not to focus on it too much. a variety of things of what can take place. But people listen more to you when they see you in a very dangerous or bad situation. They listen up. Like the dying words of somebody, they take that seriously. So it's just interesting. Jim?
I heard somebody describe what you're saying as life is a terminal disease.
Because of sin in the Garden of
Because
Eden.
of sin, yeah. But I mean, the
It was
reality
never
is
designed that way.
nobody's getting out of here alive
Yeah.
unless, well, even raptured, you're not in this body.
Yeah, and your physical life is what you're referring to.
Yes,
All right,
exactly.
so the mark is often misunderstood here. So don't let people tell you things the Bible isn't saying. But we'll keep covering some more. We're going to get down to it some more here. So right hand, foreheads, why does he require buy or sell? I said buy, right? To buy in the marketplace, to purchase. What's the word sell mean? 4453. To exchange or barter. That's an interesting understanding there. So you literally, another way it describes it, you are disposing of property. Whether you're getting something in return or not, however it's happening, that's what that word sell means. So you think of it that it's, I got to be a shopkeeper that I'm selling something. And the word is broader than that. It's any kind of exchange or barter of goods. So you may say, well, I'm going to be passing some things around. I need some meat. I need some protein in my diet. I got plenty of grains. I'm going to find somebody with some protein. We're going to trade. Don't tell the IRS.
I don't think you're gonna, I don't think that's why it says barter. I don't think you're gonna be able to barter. I think that people are gonna turn you in, just kinda like Texas with the abortion. You know, if you find somebody that gives an abortion, you get 10 grand. I think you're gonna have a lot of self-policing.
Okay, and that's going on already in our world. It's always been going on. That's always going to happen. But this bartering, I pictured happening more between Christians. And they may be hiding out and they may know where some stashes are or whatever they're doing. And again, I don't recommend you get 5 years of food stored up and then hoard it. If you want to store 5 years of food, make sure other Christians and other people who have not taken the mark especially know where it is. Feed them. Feed your enemy. Share the gospel.
I mean, I feel like maybe that's what God has used me for,
So far.
right? Because I am one of those people that are prepared. And I could help others.
Yeah. All of us probably have 90 days in our pantries.
I got 8 years.
We're not beggars. We fit more on the side of the rich
You know where it's at?
when it comes here.
I'm serious.
Right. But people have to get to you. If you can't buy or sell, I mean, if you don't have a debit card, you can't get gasoline. There are going to be great limitations, especially for people living in Lapine. And if it's, he says, pray it's not in the winter for the pregnant women, for the Jews fleeing out of Judah. It's going to be true about Christians around the world. But somewhere winter is either just ending or starting next week, as it does in Lapine. We only get 1 week of summer. So, just kidding. What limitations does this place upon people getting their needs met? I put in there a lot with an exclamation point. What did you put there? What restrictions does it put on you? You stop going to stores. You don't have to worry if they're out of toilet paper or not.
I said it's hard to function at all. Eat, do business, live life.
Travel.
Okay, a little louder and one more time, because I couldn't hear very good.
I said it will be hard to function at all. Hard
Okay.
to eat, do business, live life.
Okay, in general. Okay, Jim, you had a hand up?
You can't purchase any necessities
Okay, that we're used to.
that we're used to.
All right.
You can't travel, and you probably will not be able to have your medical needs met.
Okay, if they go cashless, which is what everybody's guessing, you won't be taking a taxi, a train, a plane, a bus. None of that you'll be able to get on and use because it won't be accessible to you. Okay, good. What else? Does that kind of cover it?
I guess. I mean, if you're limited on resources, gasoline, so on, how do you?
Your microphone, is that on?
Doesn't appear to be.
Okay.
So if you're limited on resources, just gathering at a group like this, you can't meet with other.
Okay. You may be limited even getting to a group meeting, depending on how far apart we all live. And your own resources, even though you may have some, how do you travel with that? If you're not driving a car, you're walking with it. Do you have a backpack on? Do they do like they do in many countries even right now? They will examine your backpack. They won't let you bring a backpack into grocery stores now. Because people are stealing things, for one thing.
Using the whole cart.
Right.
They could have weapons in it.
And then they can bring a weapon in that you can't see. That's really what they're more concerned about. But there's a lot of thievery where they're putting stuff in their backpacks and walking out. They just had $12,000 taken from a Macy's by 4 illegals that have been recently brought up to New York. Went into a Macy's and tried to take $12,000. Well, the only reason they got in trouble is because they went over the limit. No, I'm half kidding, but it's just sad what's going on. But those people, I'm not surprised those people did that. They think that's what you can do in America now. The laws are being set aside. I'm in need. I get to go take whatever I want. So it's kind of a weird day for us to be watching. Leo?
I'm just thinking that we'll probably end up having less deer in our neighborhood.
Less deer in our neighborhood? Okay, God may supply through other means.
Less deer, dogs, cats.
All the humans and the
Raccoons, squirrels, all those yummy things. Go ahead, Ken.
Ravens.
animals around here would be gone in a matter of a month.
All right. And you'll be going online looking up how to cook squirrel, how to make possum taste good.
How to cook raven.
Just kidding. We're kind of getting on a little bit. I'm trying to keep it loose. See, Bernie's at home right now, and he's trying to fall asleep because we've been about a half hour in. Wake up, Bernie. All right, we're just trying to keep him on his toes. Question? Comment? All right. So when you come down here, what will the mark consist of that will identify the Antichrist? Literally, the name and the number of the beast, and the implication is that they are, the way the Greek's written, they are one and the same. That's interesting. So the whole thing about 666 that you see all over the place, when people superstitiously see it show up on something that they got, I just had it show up on something the other day, and you go, everybody goes, oh. It's not. It's what that number represents. It's the name that you're going to find on there. So we're going to go into that and figure out, oh, look at the time. I guess we're almost done, huh? Or does Isaac take over here? So verse 18, we didn't read it. Someone loud and clear with the microphone that's working. Did you get, good, you got batteries on that one. Okay,
He with
Isaac.
wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for the number is that of a man, and his number is 666.
All right, so what does John declare to his readers?
Here is wisdom.
That's an interesting phrase. What does the little word here mean?
Here.
5602 in the Greek.
Oh,
Or look it up in Vines. No, it's not the hearing. H-E-R-E.
An explanation?
The things here,
Okay, it can carry that idea, but it actually has a meaning behind it.
what is going on here?
Okay, what is going on here might be a way we'd say it.
the state of affairs,
And what?
the state of affairs,
Okay, I didn't find that one, but that could get, it carries the idea of in this circumstance or in this connection. We would say in this case. In what case? In the case of wisdom, if you want to understand this, here is wisdom. In this circumstance is wisdom. What's the word wisdom mean?
knowledge,
Okay, knowledge stands on its own, but what kind of knowledge is it talking about?
insight.
Okay, be insight into, Vine says insight into the true nature of things.
Yeah,
It carries the idea of not just knowledge, but practical knowledge, practical insight. Carries the idea of skill in living. When somebody is wise, they know how to do things. It isn't just a head thing, and that's what too many people think wisdom is. You don't know somebody's wise until they act wisely, until it comes out. And it always comes out in a skillful living. It's a very practical thing, wisdom is. Jim.
I've heard it described as the proper application of knowledge.
Okay, proper application of knowledge, okay? So who can discern the mark in verse 18?
He who has understanding.
Okay, he who has understanding. This word, 3563, is simply the word, what?
Reason.
Okay, reason Even more simple, it's the word nous. It just means mind. He who has a mind. Is this kind of simple? He's not looking for somebody that has a PhD. He says if you have ears to hear, listen. If you have a mind, you can understand the mark. You can understand the number of his name. And this is where I keep stressing to you when you're going through scriptures. If you get into a situation where the definitions or the explanations from well-known Bible teachers are a bunch of gobbledygook, or they give you 6 different ways it can be interpreted, whenever I run into that, I go, okay, this is a whole lot simpler than the PhDs are understanding. God has not made his word to be so frustrating, and so, because here he's expecting you to know what it is. This isn't hidden. This is understandable. So if you have a mind, which we all don't, but we won't go into that. If you have the ability to perceive, the ability to make decisions or to determine things, if that's you, let you do what? In verse 18, what's it going to say? What's the command? Calculate the number. So I said, what is one with understanding commanded to do? Is calculate the number. How is this word used elsewhere? Luke 14:28 we'll get to, but let's back up. What does it mean? Define this word, calculate the number. Again, simple. It's real simple. Compute the number. Count the number. Reckon the number. If you look up a few resources, you go back that the basic meaning behind this was to vote with a pebble. It was to vote. So you're making a decision because you have the ability to determine. You who have understanding, you have a mind, you're voting, you're taking a position, you're making a determination, is all it's trying to get to here. And so it's used in Luke 14:28, only other place in the New Testament. What does that verse read? Someone want to read it to us?
For which one of you, when he wants to build a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if he has enough to complete it?
Okay, how is calculating or counting or voting, determining used there in Luke 14? What's the bigger context? What's the guy thinking about doing?
Building a tower.
Okay, building a tower. The bigger context, Luke 14, 15 to 28 or 30, whatever the end of it was. What's the bigger context?
They say calculate the cost, be sure you can pay for it in the end.
Okay. It's referring to the king. The bigger context here, I probably should do it in my other Bible because I can see it easier. Jesus says to him about discipleship in 26, you can't come after me if you don't hate your own father, mother. He's talking about a contrast there of loving him more than them, which is commonly used that way. You cannot be his disciple in verse 27 unless you carry your own cross. Come after me. That means you're heading toward death. You're willing to die for me. And then he finally gets around and says in verse 33, therefore no one can be my disciple who does not give up all his own possessions. So he gives them 3 things here. And he says when he's talking about those things, in verse 28, for which one of you, when he wants to build a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost? Who's the one calculating in the context? It's not the disciple. It's Christ. This is where, again, this is often misunderstood. They go around, count the cost. No, it's Christ counting the cost. He wants to build a tower. He wants to have an army and go to war, and you decide, do I have enough to build the tower? Do I have a big enough army to win the war? It's Christ calculating. And what he's deciding is, when he goes out to get a disciple, am I getting a disciple who is sold out to me? I don't want a bunch of people in my army that are going to see the enemy and run. That is worthless to me. In fact, that's worse than worthless. It gives me a false impression, and all of a sudden I'm standing out there in big trouble. So Christ is saying, I will not accept you as a disciple unless you are with me 100%. More important than your family, more important than your life, more important than all your possessions. Those only people I take as my disciples. What's the church in America? How many are truly disciples of Christ? A very small number. that are genuinely saved, that are truly committed, that have given up everything to follow him and put their trust in him alone for their salvation. So that's the context here. If you go back to verse 28, he's using an illustration about a builder. He's using the term calculate. How does it help us in the understanding of the definition here? What'd you write in that space, that extra line I gave you? How's the word used in Luke 14:28? Is it blank?
I just counted the cost.
Again, count the cost, calculate the cost. What has that guy done in order to figure that out? When you use the term here over in Revelation 14, when he says, calculate the number, the word for number in the Greek is the word we get arithmetic from. So calculate the math. Do the math is how we would kind of put that out there. That's what the builder is doing if he already starts a tower. Otherwise, people are going to laugh at him. And we've had a few of those in our country. Big projects that didn't make it. They didn't have the money when they really came down to it, Paul. Or bridges or whatever you want to call it. That was abnormal. I give them the benefit of the doubt on that one. And that may still be built, or some other high-speed things, and the cost has rarely ever comes in under budget and on time, because they didn't really calculate it well. They knew the numbers. They didn't want to tell people what it really was going to cost. But once you're halfway into the project, how are you going to stop? And I have unlimited funds from the public, so I just keep going. But you can't do that in private business. And that's what he's talking about here. So I'm having you to think, because this is going to help you a lot in understanding what this is talking about. Calculate the cost. When you go back into how it was used in the Greek-speaking society, you pull up a couple books. One is Moulton and Milligan. And they give you how the Greeks use these words, and they did use it. And often it was used with the idea of I wrote some of them down here. I'm trying not to give you answers too often, and maybe it's still coming up. Because I'm too many lessons ahead here. Yeah, I think it shows up again in another one, so now I got myself hung out trying to find it in either 31 or 32. Any other comments about calculating? You guys have that blank look on your faces. Yeah, that's 31.
So, is this calculating what is required to complete the task? Is that how we see this, or am I missing it?
To complete the task of figuring out what the name of the beast is. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do I count that?
Exactly.
How do I vote correctly with that idea? See, to me, there's something there that I haven't quite cracked, but I feel like I'm right on the verge of understanding that there's something a whole lot simpler here than people are making out.
Well, and it's not just recognize, because Greek has a word for that.
Right.
Like recognize the number or whatever.
He's saying calculate the number. And when he gets down there, we can finish this part off, because we'll get halfway in again, Ron, sorry. And be behind, but that's good for you, because you have some stuff to do while you guys aren't here next week or the next couple of weeks. But when he goes on here, and I'll come back to it, but he says, what two things does John tell us about the number? The number is that of a man. It is a man's number. That's really helpful. Isn't that what you assumed when you're reading your Greek New Testament in English? What's the mathematical side of it?
666.
His number is 600s, and literally as it reads in the Greek, and I got away from that. There are some words missing, which people would say, well, they aren't important, and I'm going, okay, but they're missing, so I want to know why they're missing. And he says the number of it is implied. That's fine. That happens a lot in Greek, but it's 600s, 66. There's no and in there, like we put in English, which again may be supplied. I'm not saying it can't be there, but I'm kind of looking at it going, why is it written like this? What's the tendency on this thing? What are people looking at normally?
I was going to say, there's all those numerology,
Okay.
people who do the letters, and the guy's name has this many letters and all that.
And they've come up with at least a dozen well-known people historically, and they tweak things a little bit to change this, change that, and so the numerical thing is not given to us in Scripture, so it's not inspired. And so God didn't, with this, he could have put verse 19, here's how you calculate, here's the Greek alphabet, here's what the numbers are worth. Now count it up. He didn't give that to us. Man has given us a faulty system, and so you'll find all these different people thinking it's anybody from Nero to Hitler to, who was the Roman Caesar in the 90s? Domitian. They can come up with all of them. They can make you line up. They work on John F. Kennedy. They come up with a bunch of them. Okay, I don't know what the names are, but they're using some of those, and that could be one of them. If you work hard enough at it, so what has that got me? How well did I calculate?
Not very good.
So the second question I ask is, why did you command that for us to do that?
That's what I want to know.
Because it's doable. He doesn't give us commands that we can't do. That's why, again, I'm not saying I have answers, because I don't, but I feel like I'm just on the edge of it, and I go, why won't this just crack? I keep looking, I keep going to abstract documents and going outside of the normal boxes, because they're terrible. Some of the commentaries I have are absolutely terrible on some of this stuff. Linda?
I always look at the number 7, we look at it as, we say that that's the full number of God.
Okay.
So we know that it's less than God's number of 7.
Okay.
We're using the 666.
But it's 600s, 66. If you wanted to emphasize 7 with Christ, wouldn't you just say 7, 7, 7 if I wanted to emphasize that number? Because that's the number I'm after. It's used for 70 times 7. It's used in a variety of ways, even the 490 years. But it's the number 7 by itself is the perfect number. Used many times in the book of Revelation. Jim had a hand up.
Is this something that in 2023 in the United States, we don't grasp what's going on well enough to be able to do this now, but when we get to that point, it might be obvious?
Okay. If that's true, which is a good observation, what do I do with the 7 churches who got this message? They were commanded to calculate the number. That's who the message was written to. So yes, we're reading it way down the line, but the original readers were told with a command, aorist imperative, calculate the number of the beast. So if it was true that the Greek literally said 6, 6, 6, that would have a different meaning to me. That's what's been brought over into English. That's what many people think the number is, 6, 6, 6. But it's the number is 600s, 66. Is there a significance to that? And I'm going to tell you it's simple, and maybe before I die, I'll finally say, Eureka! I found it.
So are you saying that the 7 churches has already calculated it out and just hasn't?
They may have understood a lot more than we do now, yes. It may have been more of a thing in the day. And they could have gone with Nero because his name added up to that. I don't know. But I'm thinking it's a whole lot simpler. And when I've done that in the past, I've done that in a number of areas, it finally, somebody like the pre-wrath thing comes along and finally gives me the answer. It's not like I found it, but they finally put the pieces together, and I think that's how this is going to come about. And yes, is it critical for us to know that number right now? Maybe not. Then why did he command the 7 churches to know it? Don't know. So see how much I helped you? I have totally clarified everything, and you walk out of here with your brains free and clear. Now, what I want you to do is get rid of all the extra stuff people have stuffed in there. Same thing with the mark, that it's very clearly, you're going to know when there's a mark on the right hand and on the forehead. It's not going to be a bunch of optional things that are out there today, or things that they slipped under when you were sleeping. It's not going to work that way. Same thing with this number. You'll have no question in your mind. But it's like, who needs the number when you see the man? When he rises up from the dead, when he has a false prophet who's working miracles, calling fire down, when all these things are taking place, who cares what the number is? You're not going to have any doubts who the guy is. He will be the world ruler who the false prophet will be promoting very, very well. And the majority of people will be deceived into following him because they refuse to receive the truth.
Is the Antichrist the only one that's gonna have that 666 on his head?
No, it's his name. It's his name and his number. I don't know if he's going to have it on himself. He's not marking himself with that ownership. It'll be right here. He's marking other people as his.
So it's like branding the cattle you own.
Branding the cattle
You own.
yes, with your name.
Right, so the Antichrist is gonna brand these individuals that mark.
You could put it that way. He's going to engrave his name upon them in a raised manner that they will be proud to wear.
I heard, like, I don't know where, in movies or where I heard this, but they wanted to shave leaders' heads to look for that mark on their scalp.
Okay, others have done stuff like this, and there may have been tattoos and things put on people that their hair covered up. I don't know what that's about. This will not be hidden. This, whatever they were doing, they weren't looking for this mark. You can't hide it from your right hand and your forehead. Conspicuous, visible. Well, that's the number of his name. So what is his name? Let's say his name was Nero, and Nero added up to 666. But Nero was the name put on there. When Hitler went by, what did they do? They saluted him, which is a form of respect, submission, acknowledgement. And what did they say out of their mouths? Heil Hitler, what did that mean? What's Heil mean? Okay, I don't know if it means praise. It's just the idea of hail or to praise or to, you're honoring the man. You're recognizing him. Now, there's people that came out of the war that said, well, I did it because I didn't want to die. God only knows the hearts. But what am I doing? I'm basically worshiping the man. Someone look up Heil or Hail Hitler.
I think that's why people wonder if they are gonna be able to do that with the beast as far as the mark. Like, you know, go along with it just to go along.
You mean have a fake?
Well, but no, I'm saying people, Christians say, well, what if I have to do it just to, you know, I know that, but.
You cannot look. Hey, look at 14:9. We've looked at it a couple times, just to remind us. Revelation 14, and it's in a context there, but just so you to pick up on it. He goes a little further and he makes it very, very clear. And it's not verse 9. It's actually goes down to verse 11, but I'll read it. 14:9 says, another angel, a third one, followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast in his image and receives a mark on his forehead or upon his hand, that's a package deal, he also will drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is mixed in the full strength in the cup of his anger, and he will be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb, and the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night, those who worship the beast in his image and whoever receives the mark of his name. You cannot fake it.
I think you said that, maybe I misunderstood you, but the mark is not gonna be 666.
I don't think so.
No, I know, but it kinda came up.
Okay.
And I just wanted.
So repeating that, I don't think the mark of the beast will actually be the number 666.
No. And
It will be his name, and that is the number of his name. Whatever, that's what we're trying to boil this down to. What does that mean? How do I calculate that? How do I vote on that? Which is what they did with it. That's what the word meant in ancient Greek. They would calculate, or they would vote in an election. They would make a decision ahead of time about the tower they were going to build. They'd cast their vote, yes or no. They would give a white pebble or a black pebble back in the day. Jim.
This says the English translation of Heil is salvation.
So that's even going further.
Yeah, wow.
So they're calling him Savior Hitler.
Yeah. It also means safety. It means whole, as in the entire.
So that's like the Greek word shalom. That means whole. That means peace, but it carries that idea. But it goes a little beyond that, so it's not quite the same. But that is interesting to me. Yeah, Tiffany.
We were randomly studying in Latin today, and salve is hello, and it's the base for the word salvation, and safe. So it's like safety as you're coming type of a thing, and it could be that same idea.
So they're actually acknowledging him with their Heil Hitler as the savior, the one who's delivered them, because they were in a really, really bad depression, just like the United States. And he brought them out of that. He had put them back on the mark, and they had been suppressed by World War I. They had been humiliated by the Versailles Treaty, whatever it was called, and all that went on with that. And they were looking for someone to get them out of that. And he was the man, and so they acknowledged him. Now, if you watch war movies, like I tend to do when my wife's not around, because she doesn't know, and you get footage of people after the war and how Germans treated Hitler after the war, you would say, boy, they're really fickle. That isn't because they didn't do that anymore. They were not worshiping him. They were cursing him. And again, he had ruined their lives with this false rise that really was empty and done against God. See, this is the whole problem with the world today. I'm using up the time, Ron. We'll do 31 when you're gone and then 32. But this whole problem with the world today, the issue is there is one God. There is one person who determines how life on earth should be, and he determines that it should be dominated by righteousness. That was the Garden of Eden before Satan deceived Eve. Righteousness dominated the world. It's what Christ is bringing back. And you see that in many of the prophets in the Old Testament. It's what's coming. Even the bells of the horses in Jerusalem are going to have something like that. But again, my memory's fading, but it's something there. But it's righteousness what's going to dominate. People go, well, what right does God have to tell us how we have to live? Well, he's the creator. But bigger than that, he is God. He is the eternal, omnipotent, all-knowing one. It's a terrifying thing to fall into the hands of the living God, because people realize two things. I can't get out of getting in trouble, and I never understood who he really was. Both of those things will terrify. Christ came in a very humble, mild, meek way. People did not recognize him. He demonstrated himself to be God, sinless, miracles, foreknowledge, just his power. Perfect love, never selfish, never wished revenge on people, even though he would do that later. He didn't come to get that kind of revenge. He came to seek and to save those who were lost. So as you see that, you're looking at somebody, that's not a normal human being. He was human, don't get me wrong, but he was God. Question? Go ahead. We're finishing this off. We got 6 or 7 minutes.
616.
Oh, okay. How they come up with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, where is that on your A, B, C, D?
I did bring the older one. I got number 3. Isaac's going to check it out for you.
Well, no, I mean, it was because,
myself, so I'll be right back.
Okay, good.
because that is in some of the older,
Right. I'm not sure if it's big enough to actually show up on here, but let me check and see. And then I'll let him answer. But no, initially, I don't see that on that page.
okay.
They didn't deal with it. Oh, I'm sorry. They did. It's number 18. I'm going to let Isaac tell you all about it, because I promised to make him have to back all this stuff up, and I haven't let him.
What are we talking about?
In the Greek, there are some that question whether or not the middle number isn't 60, it's 10, I guess is what it has to be. And some Greek manuscripts have that, and so Isaac's going to tell you how reliable that is.
All right, so this is, according to this one, obviously, that it is 60 is recognized as A, so completely reliable.
And see, mine was B in 3rd edition, so they found out even more that they've moved it to A. A means they're confident that that's the right, that 666 is the right reading. And then there's a little more in there.
Yeah, the vast majority of the manuscripts are 60. The other option is, I have to, my Greek's not as good as yours, but
Long word.
yeah, Tessiconta, in 1, 2, 3 manuscripts have something else, basically. So very, very little argues against it.
Yeah, they're throwing something in with the 144,000 with that one. And then the last one is Deca, And the manuscript C, and then a few little stuff is on there, but vast majority 60. So some people claimed onto that, and this is the 3rd edition. Then they did a 4th edition, which means they keep collecting. His is 5th edition. They went from B in here. They're pretty sure that it's 60 to A. They're confident it's 60.
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to calculate something if you don't have the right number.
Correct. So that's why they do this, and they're trying to keep up with what manuscript evidence they have. And why somebody made it 10, they may have been leaning toward a Roman leader that they wanted to pin it on. And it was easier if it was 616 than 666, or 666. Questions along with this? I believe personally, just throw it out there because I'm not seeing any hands yet, that this is doable, that you can calculate the number of his name, and the focus being on his name. I don't think it's necessary to wait for the future. Now that name may be what you would call a nickname. It may be the word Caesar, which is also I think one of the ones they grab onto. It may be just more of a general term, but that's what his name is. That's his title. That's all the word nomos means for name. But it also, nomos also carries the idea, because you're going to do that next week, I believe, or the week after, that it carries the idea of character when you use a name. It carries the idea of authority. This is what he's putting on people's foreheads. Wouldn't you love it if everybody ran around? Isaac and I would love it, because if we use the word Jack, he would be included with the last name. His whole family would love it. If it was Jack on 4 heads, man, what would that do for me? Nothing. What a waste of lettering. Paul.
When I read ahead, Revelations 22:4, why is God putting our new names on our heads?
Same thing.
Why? But hey, I'm not going to look in the mirror.
You're not going to get to
my name.
ask. Yeah.
I mean, so why is he giving? I mean, I know he's giving us a new name, but why is it being put
Why
on?
will they wear the number 660 and 66?
That is to do it by itself,
But I know, but why will they put the number on?
To declare their allegiance.
Allegiance,
yeah, but you're the new.
loyalty, pride, honor, worship, like they did with Hitler. It's a big deal. When you walk around with that number on your head, who's going to be born into the New Jerusalem? Or outside the New Jerusalem initially? A whole bunch of people. A number that you can't count. Like the sand of the seashore in Revelation 20. Guess what they won't have on their foreheads? They won't have his number if they're not saved. And the majority, a large, vast number of them will never get saved. So you're going to be walking around with a title on your forehead, not on your right hand.
Right.
It's no longer going to be used to put under a scanner or whatever they're doing with it. But it'll be used as a mark of honor, a mark of respect, a mark that you will gladly wear in your new body. I wouldn't wear it in this body. That would not be my choice. Because I don't even want it on my sweatshirt. Linda.
So, in Revelation that we haven't covered yet, it talks about that we will receive a special name that no one else knows from God.
Unique to you, but not a new name in the sense of new. I get a mix up. So I shouldn't have spoken that.
A name.
You're going to get a name that's personalized.
That isn't the name that will go on our forehead.
Where are you talking?
It's Revelations 22:4.
Oh, okay, you're up in that one.
Is that the one that says that no one else knows?
No, that's the 24 elders singing. Nobody else knows. The 22:4 is they give you a new name. Well, they're going to put it on your forehead, so everybody's going to know.
Okay, we're looking for the one where nobody else knows the name.
And it's individual to
That's different than the song.
person.
Yeah.
Makes me so mad.
Revelation 2:17 and 19:12. 2:17 and 19:12 both say that.
Yes.
Revelation 2:17 says, what's it say, Linda?
No,
That's not the
that's
one.
not the one.
Did I give you the wrong number?
That we will receive, that those,
No one knows the name. 2:17. But I'm just saying that's an example of that phrase. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, which may include everybody, to him I will give some of the hidden manna, and I will give him a white stone and a new name written on the stone which no one knows but he who receives it. And that word for new there is kainos. Kainos is the Greek word, which is a refreshed name. It's new to you. Not recent in time, but new to you. Okay, that's one example.
It's on a stone, it's not on a stone. Didn't you read the stone?
Yeah, okay, that one's on the stone. So then when you get over to 1912, Ron, we're giving you a few extra minutes because you're going to miss us next week.
That's Christ in 1912, isn't it?
Upon his head of many diadems, he has a name written upon him which no one knows. Okay, well, those are only two of them that are in the book of Revelation.
But this one is on a stone.
Okay, so it's a name on a stone, however, that's all going to work.
What was that verse?
217 and 1912. All right? So I didn't give you all the answers you want because I don't have them yet. But I'm still looking. And I put some stuff in my translation that hopefully clarifies some of this, wherever the translation went. At the very end there in verse 18, here is wisdom, also known as practical insight. Let the one have in a mind, mental perception, ability to think, count up, calculate, compute the specific number of the beast, because the specific number is of a man's number. And the specific number is 666. So you ponder on that. You wake up in the middle of the night tonight and you're asking God to give you understanding. Fill my mind with the truth. Show me how to calculate this number, because I want to know. And it may be pertinent to the generation we're living in, because you may see that man at least face to face on TV. And you will go, ow! Or you'll go, I still don't understand, but I know what his name is now. I don't know. So let's pray. We need to close off. Father, we are grateful for your word. We'd be the first ones to admit, as I do every day, almost everything I read, that there's things I don't understand. It doesn't mean they're not understandable. It means that you've given us a book that encourages us to dig in and to pull out treasures that are just sitting in there, but they're not just easy for us to be lazy about. We have to work at it. We have to be diligent to present ourselves approved to you. We have to rightly divide your word and take that treasure then and apply it to our lives. So help us. We want to know more. We want to keep adding to what we already know. We want to please you. We want to walk in your ways. So God, use us for your glory. And help us to spend time meditating on your word and not expect you to hand it to us like spoiled brats when we give you 10 seconds of just reading a verse. Help us to work with you, I pray, in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Happy birthday, Ron.